Hello guys, welcome to our next video. I'm from the Salesforce Drillers team, and in today's session, we're going to be taking a look at mock classes in Salesforce. So basically, mock classes are used in Salesforce to provide a way so that we can call out to third parties using our test classes. So anytime you're writing a test class for something which is making a call out, rather be it a REST or a SOAP call out, you can use mock classes to define mock responses for the test classes. So what that means is when you run a class or when you run a test class which indirectly makes a call out, so your mock class will actually provide the response of that call out instead of you actually hitting the third party and getting the response. So again, you can go to our website and check out any references that you want based on the mock classes topic. You would be able to find that right in the Salesforce developer and the mock classes in Salesforce section. So basically, mock classes are different for your REST and your SOAP APIs, just like everything with these two APIs in Salesforce. So mock classes for the REST APIs implement the HTTP callout mock interface like this. And the syntax for creating a mock class for an REST API is like this. You need to create a separate class called mock response. I mean, it's gonna still be denoted with the @is test notation since this is indeed related to a test class. Then you need to implement the HTTP callout mock interface into this class. And then when you implement this interface to this class, you need to define a respond method which will actually return you the body of the response that is supposed to be returned from your mock class to your test classes. Now, the important thing to keep in mind again is that once you implement a mock class in your test class, because you cannot make an actual API integration to the real third party in test classes. So you need to use the mock classes to define those fake responses or mock responses, right? So we're going to take a look at this in our org. So let me open one of the classes that we have defined already. And that class is making callouts using the REST API. So here it is. This is a really simple class, as you can see, which is called Web Service Consumer, and it is making a REST callout to a third party, which is this one. And this is using a get method to make that callout, right? So let's say we want to write the test class for this class, right? So what we would do is I'm going to open the developer console here. So here I have my developer console. So let me create the test class for this first. I'm going to just call it Web Service Consumer Test. And let me create, okay, so let me just create this test class. So I'm just going to append this test class with the is test notation. And I'm going to write here, create one of the test methods. As a best practice, again, we're going to be using test.start test and test.stop test here. And then to actually call our method, we're going to just use the method that we want to test, which is web service consumers consume.get method like this. Now, if I save this test class and then I run this test, you'll see something interesting. That the method fails, and then we get is that test methods defined as this method do not support web service callouts. What this means is that you cannot make any callouts, an actual callouts from any of your test classes. So now what we need to do is we actually need to create the mock class for this test class first. And as you can see here, this is the syntax for our mock class. So let me create a mock class for this particular example. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to creating one more new class, and we are going to call it web service consumer underscore mock. And again, you need to use the is test notation with this. And then just like the example here, I'm going to copy out this interface. And then since I've implemented this interface here, I need to define one method which returns the response. That method is called the respond method, which returns us a body of the HTTP response. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to be defining an HTTP response instance here. Let me fix these single quotes first. Then we set the status code of the response that you want to set and the body of the response as well. And in the last line, we are going to return this response from here like this. So what we have done here is anytime this mock class is used with a test class, so whatever response you define inside of this respond method, this HTTP response will be returned when we make the call out from our test class. So now since I've defined this mock class here, all I need to do is I need to call the test.setMock method here, and my interface type would be HTTP response, the REST API. So for the REST API, you need to use the HTTP callout mock.class, and then you would specify an object of the actual mock class next to it. So in here, you can define a new web service mock, then you set it up like this. So once this is saved, and if I run the test class again, you should be able to see that now we are able to actually make the call out from here and our test has passed. So again, if I open this, you'll see that we have achieved 100% coverage for this class, because the call out that is being achieved from here is being handled by the mock, and the mock is returning us a mock response of call out response body like this, and we are able to use that in the test classes for the REST integrations. So really simple example of demonstrating how a mock class works. A common scenario that you might face is that maybe you could have multiple type of REST API calls in your main classes, and you want to define different types of responses for different API calls. So in that scenario, you can either use multiple mock classes. That is one of the ways to do it. Or the second way to do it is you have one common mock class and you can differentiate your request based on this HTTP request that you're sending. So you could do something like .get endpoint .get endpoint equals to the endpoint which you are calling out to. So for in this example, you're calling out to this endpoint, right? So I'll do something like this, and then I'll define the response of this endpoint inside my if statement like this, and I define the body on the top. So now in the future, if I want to use this mock class with any other REST APIs apart from this endpoint, we want to use this same mock class for any other endpoint. So you just need to add like an else if here, and then we differentiate the response again by the second endpoint, maybe users 3 or something. And then we can define a different format inside of it, like here. Like we can have the 400 status, and in the response we can send error. So you can also do something like that. So now if you make an API call out and you're calling out to this endpoint, so our mock class will return this response. If you call out to this endpoint, the mock class will return this response. So pretty easily you can like manage and define responses for all the different endpoints and stuff. Alright, so this is the basic introduction for REST mock classes. Now let us look at an example of how the mock classes work in the SOAP API. So in the case of a mock classes for SOAP APIs, the interface to implement is called web service mock instead of the HTTP callout mock, which we use for REST APIs. And functionality wise is almost the same. The only difference is instead of a respond method, we define a do invoke method here in the case of SOAP APIs. So basically, for an example, let me create a mock class for our SOAP API. So I'm gonna call here web service, or let me use an example of a SOAP API callout that we have. So let's say we have this class here. This class has been generated from a WSDL file for the SOAP API, and this is making a call out in the expose SOAP method right here. So when we want to, or not the expose SOAP method, but this test SOAP method, I'm sorry, right here. So let's say we want to write a test class for this class. So again, we're gonna create a new Apex class here called mySoapConsume underscore test. Then we're gonna just let me change stuff here so that I don't waste your time, guys. Then in here, I'm just gonna be calling the method that I want to cover, right? So I'm gonna be defining my web soap consume, and since this is the method, test soap method is the one which is making that call out. We're gonna define an instance like this. And then we're gonna do call out by doing obj dot test soap and whatever value you want to pass inside of it, just because this is accepting a string parameter here, like this first test, and we save this. Alright, so again I'm gonna run this and you'll see that this test class also fails because it says that methods defined as test methods do not support web service callout. Now again we have to follow the same procedure. We have to define a mock class for this SOAP API as well. So I'm gonna say consume dot mock, and again we're gonna add the @is test notation here. But since this is a mock class for the SOAP, we're gonna implement the web service mock interface here. And once we implement this interface, we need to define this do invoke method inside of our class like this. So let me remove these extra spaces. Alright, so pretty similar. How this works is a little different than the REST, because in the case of REST, you could directly just specify whatever response you wanted, right? But in here, the response type actually matters, and you because you'll have to take a look at what type of response your this method is returning. So you'll have to like look into the code and stuff to figure out, because in the example I just put in here as soap result, but we don't have a generic soap result class here. But this response underscore x, this is variable which is like passed in the top here. This is what is used to like return your response from your soap classes. So let me just do that real quick. Let me set up the example for this. So basically, what we need to do now is like we need to put this response back into this response map, which is being passed here. Like this is the step that you always need to do with mock classes. But this response x variable depends on each individual visible class that you have. So if we look at the visible class that we have right here, the easiest way to find it is like you look for an element which has response element in the last. Once you do this, you are able to find that we have a test soap response element class here, and this is what is used for the response of our API. So you need to define an instance of this. So you need to have my soap consume, that is the main class. Then you need to have test soap response element inside of it. Let's say sp, creating a new like this. Then resp dot result, and then you can put whatever result you want, like hello world, and then you use this resp variable here and put it in the response dash underscore x value. So now this class is ready to be used into your test class. Then again, the way to use it here is by doing test dot set mock. Like since we are using a soap class, we need to use web service mock dot class, and then we need to define an instance of the soap class here, like same way we did for the rest, like this. Now we can again run this, and as you can see, we are able to successfully run the test. We'll see that the coverage here has increased now 40% because this method has been covered. So similarly, you can, in the same way as this, you can get the endpoint here with this endpoint variable, and you can do the same thing that you could do in the rest mock classes, where you can put like if statements on this endpoint, define a different response for each endpoint. So I'm not going to demonstrate that again, but that's the same idea here too. So this was again a really simple example of doing a mock class for the SOAP APIs. I hope you guys understood this, and I'll see you guys in the next video.